Welcome back to Infinite Geek Talk, an ongoing conversation between your hosts, former DC Comics editor and owner of Infinite Heroes in Watertown, Connecticut, Paul Santos, who is joined by Keith Field, co-founder of Gorilla Valley Games and the owner of Rat's Nest Studios. Let's listen in.
I think we pretty well hit on the whole why you should all hate science fiction.
God.
And if we've done anything as an entity with this infinite conversation, is I think we've opened a lot of eyes to a lot of false narratives. People are burning their copies of The Day the Earth Stood Still right now as we speak, en masse on the streets of Waterbury. Hero, savior, Keith Charles Field. Actually, as I sit here, though, as I suggested, there are certainly exceptions to this rule, but without going case by case. The big one that I feel I have to explain is beautiful and good, and it alone justifies the existence of science fiction as an entity, is one of the most important movies you'll ever see. Now, this question I offer to the world, as I ask it to you, young Master Paul. Have you ever seen the movie Damnation Alley?
I have not, no.
Are you familiar with the movie Damnation Alley?
No, I'm assuming it's a 70s movie.
It is. And it's a very important 70s movie. Hey, Rich, have you ever heard of Damnation Alley?
I have not heard of Damnation Alley.
Well, here's the thing that's fun. This is a fun thing. My dear friend and partner, not that sort of partner, Sweet Gordon, is here with us tonight. We've mentioned him previously on our conversation, specifically when we discussed my hacking skills and the miracle of Titty Z, the Game Genie code.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That unlocked all of the potential of the future of gaming for an eager mankind. He is here with us in our studio this evening as an audience of sorts. But Gordon, you can perform a service for us if you would. Look up the movie Damnation Alley for me on your phone. I would love to read you a synopsis off of Wikipedia of Damnation Alley.
Quick sidebar.
yes.
I watched Nightmare Alley over the weekend.
How you the new one? I assume
The new
not
one,
the
yes.
original. Yes.
It's very good.
Okay.
I know it's like a beloved noir book, and then a beloved movie, I guess, from 47.
There was an original film that is considered a classic by many.
Yeah, it's Del Toro, so it looks good, and the writing is good, but it's the ending falls kind of flat. I know what they were going for, but it was kind of telegraphed.
I think self-same Mr. Gordon and I were discussing the movie this weekend, because I haven't seen it yet.
It's very good.
And I thought that Carla Guglielmo woman was in it, the one from Watchmen. I guess she's not.
She's not in it. No, Rooney Mara's in it.
This was one of those, what do they call it, the Mandela Effect situations?
Yes,
I was so convinced she was in it. So this is the movie Damnation Alley. Now, why am I talking about Damnation Alley? Well, because we were just talking about our least favorite movie. I'm going to suggest to you, everyone has their worst movie ever made.
Right.
And I always find that it's a broken talking point. It can be fun to talk about shitty movies, but the fact is, under what scale must you judge these films to determine whether or not a movie is truly bad?
That's fair.
You get two kids with a video camera out in the woods, they make a movie about a dinosaur, and I don't know, they use a rock as a stegosaurus. Maybe there's some sort of dignity in their deluded efforts to make us believe a small stone is a dinosaur, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a piece of trash. Maybe there's some flair there. It shows some sort of creative development. I'm going to suggest this movie is kind of like that. It's pretending that a rock in your hand is a triceratops. It is one of the worst movies ever made, but I love it ever so much. Let you all talk about your Manos, the Hands of Fate, or your Plan 9 from outer space. Your never was idiots that are just vomiting back what you heard your cool cousins say 6 years ago. Go develop your own opinions. Or, hearken to my words, for here is the only opinion you should hold. Keith Charles Field's opinion. Now, what is Damnation Alley? It was a big budget Hollywood picture. This was supposed to be movie of the year returns.
What year is this supposed to be?
Here's the
70.
clue. The same year Star Wars was coming out.
Oh, man. It's
Because
77.
this was the movie, baby.
Okay.
Lucas had to get past the studio's commitment to Damnation Alley before he could make Star Wars happen.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Damnation Alley from Wikipedia, the least trusted source in the world. I'll let you know whether or not I approve of this synopsis. First Lieutenant Jake Tanner, played by Jan Michael Vincent, shares ICBM silo duty at an American Air Force missile base in the Californian desert with Major Eugene Sam Denton.
Okay.
Yeah. He's played by George Papard, who is requesting not to work with him. Oh, he's a hard character.
Okay.
That Eugene Sam Denton. Keith Luigi Field understands his pain. On their way to duty, Denton talks to Sergeant Tom Keegan. Now, this is my favorite character, played by Paul Winfield.
Okay.
Now, just think about this cast. It's every fifth character from a failed CBS sitcom. Jan Michael Vincent, George Papard, and Paul Winfield? If a bomb went off on that set, goodbye Hollywood. And Sergeant Tom Keegan is an aspiring artist. When the United States detects incoming nuclear missiles from the Soviet Union, Tanner and Denton launch part of the retaliatory strike. I want you to imagine Jan Michael Vincent, George Papard, and a sometimes present Paul Winfield on a set that would make Lost in Space look like your precious Avatar, making the decision of it's time for the retaliatory strike, and you still haven't summoned up the reality of this friggin' movie. So, they detect the incoming nuclear missiles from the Soviet Union. Tanner and Denton launch part of the retaliatory strike. The United States is hit hard, although it manages to intercept 40% of the Soviet missiles. Gentlemen, I ask you, why not 47? But 40%, fine. It's such a strange thing. 2 years later, the Earth had been tilted off its axis by the nuclear detonations of World War III. Radiation has mutated giant scorpions. The planet is racked by massive storms, and the sky is in a perpetual aurora borealis-like state. Tanner has resigned his commission and has been scouting Barstow, while Keegan, who has also left the Air Force, has been painting as an artist in one of the base's outbuildings. Mutated giant scorpions menace the area. Later, an airman falls asleep in a bunk and drops a lit cigarette onto a pile of Playboy magazines, which causes the entire base to catch fire and explode when an undetected strong emission of gas fumes from the base's nearby storage tanks makes contact with the flames of the burning Playboy magazines.
This is the entire movie you're reading at this
But I'm
point.
reading it quickly.
Okay.
The explosions kill most of the inhabitants, including the base commander, General Lander. He's played by Murray Hamilton. You know, old Murray Ham. Keegan and Tanner are unscathed, as are Denton and the lieutenant. They go to a garage bunker. Now, they consider going to Albany, New York to find the source of the lone radio transmission that has been aired weekly since the war. He and the remaining others set out in 2 Air Force Landmasters. Now, this is the key. We're there now, people. We're through the looking glass. The Landmasters are giant, gas-guzzling, 12-wheeled, armored personnel carriers capable of climbing 60-degree inclines and operating in water. They must cross Damnation Alley, considered the path of least resistance between intense radiation areas, thus named by Denton. Along the journey, one of the Landmasters gets disabled in a storm which kills Perry. They encounter flesh-stripping cockroaches in the ruins of Salt Lake City that eat Keegan alive. So if you ever wanted to see Madagascaran hissing roaches devour poor Paul Winfield, well, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, I told you.
It goes on. There's a tsunami. They have to go in the water. At one point, they go on dirt bikes. They follow these dirt bikes. And in the final scene, they get to a suburb of Albany, New York, and the inhabitants say hello. That is Damnation Alley. This is the movie that studio executives said, this is our science fiction opus. To hell with this war stars and its talk of Jawas and Darth Vadar.
I've never heard of this, and it sounds horrific.
It is one of the best things you'll ever watch. I had a troubling relationship with my mother. A far sadder podcast, perhaps, could carry the meat of that hellacious tale. Nonetheless, one of those special magical moments where all of the ill drifted away and there was naught but love in the house of Keith Charles Field was when, freshly after some horrific battle, we were sitting and Damnation Alley came on. And our laughter roared well into that spring afternoon. I dare suggest Damnation Alley can heal every problem within a troubled family unit. If you have a behaviorally ill child or perhaps someone who's suffering from a steppappy with boundary issues, just show them Damnation Alley and everything's going to be okay.
That's fair.
It will salve us all. Now, this is basically me explaining to you that any movie under the right light has a use. I mean, ultimately, if Damnation Alley can heal the emotional wounds of ill tide, then it's worth all of our time. But I just love that this is the Guardian that had to be passed before George Lucas could become a quadrillionaire. And it certainly answers what I think the worst movie of all time is, with great eloquence. More so than when we were stammering a few moments ago. But Paul, you've now had some time to reflect, as I told you, about a movie that saw Paul Winfield eaten by roaches to be then met by two men on dirt bikes escaping to the suburbs. Do you have any other thoughts on a favorite or a worst favorite or worst movie?
I have if you're talking favorite worst movie,
or just a worst movie that really just weans on and answers that question more dramatically.
No, I mean I like having a worst a favorite worst movie, and it's very pedestrian, I guess.
Okay.
I really like The Room.
Okay.
I think The Room is probably the worst movie ever made.
Oh, you're saying in terms of what you like. Maybe I didn't convey that.
No,
way.
not.
If you're talking about good bad movie.
Yeah, so
yeah,
not the Brie Larson movie.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
you're talking about the Tommy
Wiseau movie.
Bizarro movie. You know, once it was this little held gem of a secret. Now it is pretty popular.
Right,
obviously.
right.
But yeah, speak to it.
I mean, from every aspect, that movie was made late 90s, right? I believe late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's filmed just like it breaks every rule of story structure. It's shot as they tried selling it as a Skinamax film.
Right.
So there's the most random sex scenes in that whole movie. Just the writing is bad. The acting is terrible. I don't even know if it has a story. If it has a character arc. There is no story
of betrayal. It's that a good man can be torn down.
But there's
all he did was give.
But there's no arc.
Listen, the only arc a troubled man needs is a giant 16-wheeled carrier device that may or may not have abandoned Paul Winfield to roaches. You put Tommy Wiseau in front of Damnation Alley. No, I certainly have an affection for the movie. I think the story behind is just so much more fascinating, though.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, even before it was popularized in
but
Academy Award-winning motion picture.
But if you watch that film, the subplot with
But no, it's not a movie. It's crazy noise from a crazy person.
Yeah, it's insane.
My Tommy Wiseau thing is, I have some level of appreciation and affection for the man. He's not really my thing. You know, we kind of pick our memes in life, and it's one of those I've let drift by. But I'm so fascinated to know what his secret story is.
He's got to be ex-KGB.
There is.
That's what I'm going
okay.
Timely.
I have nothing better to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, another piece of wisdom. Tommy Wiseau is ex-KGB.
Yeah.
If you have more to add to that, by all means.
No, it just the insanity behind it.
The blood of the innocent and sinner alike is but mother's milk to Tommy Wiseau.
The money he had, because he did have some money.
We know Jack Ruby killed Oswald, but you know who killed old Jack Ruby? It's Tommy Wiseau. He's a baby.
I highly recommend watching the movie behind that movie, which I'm forgetting the name of it, with James Franco.
The Disaster
Artist.
Artist.
The Disaster Artist.
Yeah.
That's an amazing film.
They did a good job.
Very good
They
job.
did a good job. It was. It really got the spirit across. I liked everybody in it. And again, the most compelling scene for me was when Seth Rogen goes to the bank to cash his first check. And he's like, it's probably going to bounce.
Oh, right.
He's like, no, these checks never bounce. This account doesn't have a bottom.
Right.
Now I'm scared of Tommy Wiseau.
Right. Well, and that's true. That's all true things. And he's very secretive. He made another movie, I believe.
Tommy
Wiseau, which I don't remember.
He did a bunch of projects, and I'm not enough of a fan to speak intelligently, but I know he did some sort of web series with all of his actors.
Oh, yikes.
You know, trying to turn, basically trade on the kitsch of his career.
I heard that girl just turned around and went back on the bus to like Oklahoma or something after that movie.
Poor girl.
That was the end of her.
Yeah, you're a part of history now, honey. It worked for Paul Winfield when those roaches were gobbling him down.
I need to watch this. How now? Are we talking stop motion roaches? Like, what are the
well, here's the thing.
I love stop motion.
Gently lit upon it because I was reading you the whole story.
Right.
The real spoiler would be sharing the level of special effects that studio executives had more confidence in than R2-D2.
Oh, this is like Ray.
It's a thing,
This
Daddy.
is like Ray Harryhausen in 1977.
Ray Harryhausen is a gift from God.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
No, there's no speak of gift or God other than this is the gift of Satan meant to shame God.
Man.
It's a miracle. It really is. Those friggin' roaches. Oh, I'm delighted.
Who put it out?
I thought it was Fox, right? 20th
Was it
Century
Fox?
Fox.
It was Star Wars. Yeah.
I was going to then verbally perform the 20th Century Fox opening music.
I heard
and,
that.
And I'm glad
it.
Rich reacted because then I remembered we have a sound engineer who is capable of a very powerful and beautiful special effects.
Right.
So, Rich, as a tribute to you, not only am I shaming myself in this conversation, but I am now going to further that shame by enacting the song that I thought I could so do. I had enough confidence that I started to do it.
Oh, God.
Ladies and gentlemen, dun, 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 dun. Now, you put up your version, the real version, and we see what the fans like better. That I think that'll be a fun interactive game for the.
It's gonna be like Star Wars versus Damnation Alley.
You know, if I was gonna judge that battle on just the core 3 initial films, certainly I'd be laughing alongside you the rest of
Right.
it. But then I remember Sebulba sabotaging young Annie's pod racer.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, nah. If you give me the choice, I want to see Paul Winfield getting eaten by roaches.
You know what's crazy too? There's this new revisionist, like everybody loved the prequel trilogy. Have you heard about these rumblings where everyone's like, no, they've got a bad rap?
Thing. And obviously, Star Wars is more the thing that Star Wars has become. And I don't say that as some sort of dismissive lunatic. It's obviously an entirely different animal than it was during that which we perceive as our sacred relationship with the core trilogy. It's so alive now, and I feel a lot of what you're talking about comes from the contentiousness of the fan base, where you want to basically take tribal identifiers from your involvement with any genre hobby, a lot of people at least, rather than just enjoy the thing on its surface.
Right.
So they feel the need to further subdivide and further draw lines in the sand so that they can have conflict within the pool that they shouldn't be conflicted with. These are your fellow peers. Are there differences in drips in quality? Of course there are. But I feel that it's an artificial tone. It's basically, well, it's better than what we're getting now. When, if you look at these things objectively, no, it's not really. If you look at everything we're getting now.
See, people I talk to, customer-wise, and even things I've read online, prequel trilogy fans will say, oh, yeah, the first 2 aren't good movies, but I like them, or something like that.
Right.
Whereas sequel fans will be like, they're all 3 Oscar-winning, magnum opuses of sci-fi, and they really don't understand that the first Force Awakens is an okay movie. The other 2 are terrible.
Yeah, they are.
I would watch
barely movies.
I would watch Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones over those 2.
Yeah, and
over
I
the last
think
2
if
any
there's
day
a
of the week.
true tone to the people who defend the prequels, I think that's the truth of it, right?
Right.
It's that, in recognition of just the jaded garbage that was churned out through committee, where you can see the stuff that would have worked, that had razors slashed across them and other stuff woven in. It's just painful But the prequel storyline is so infantile and so obvious in its purpose to cause a big bang of merchandising
Oh, sure, yeah.
that I feel that Mammonite credo has soured the whole pool of the franchise to some degree. Because there has to be some level of emotional commitment for an honesty of emotion to come through in the film. And these 6 last films do not have any emotional heart. There's no empathy to hold to those characters until Revenge of the Sith.
I will always say that felt like a real movie to me, even though it has flaws.
It did
felt like
when
a
I
real
watched
movie.
it the premiere night, and it did when I watched it at least once or twice afterward.
Right.
But then by that time, the jingoistic hope that this franchise that you're carrying this torch for has dwindled down, at least for me. I'm not saying it should for anybody else yet. But I candle burned down enough that when I watched it again, it's like, no, it can't exist without the other 2 movies. Ergo, it is not a true movie unto itself.
I think it could exist. You're just missing a lot of subtext. You know,
I think there's enough that you would miss that it would be spiritually hollow.
You know that Anakin is with Padme.
If I didn't know that R2-D2 was one of 475 astromech droids that once stood on the outside of a ship and all 474 got killed, but then he came down and didn't die, I mean, how can I possibly remain invested in R2-D2 moving forward through this 9-film franchise?
But that's not the plot of the 3rd movie.
Well, I need to know who R2 is.
Well, that's just a thing
That's what
that
I'm
George
saying.
Lucas threw in there. That's not the actual what makes the movie
No,
good or
sorry. Just like Kyle Rayner is the character in the DC universe whose girlfriend is slaughtered. And
not. Oh my
stuffed in a
God, you
refrigerator.
can't bring that up as a
Well,
crutch.
it's his soul-defining characteristic, Paul. Then R2-D2, I can't know who R2-D2 is unless I know that he is the one Mary Sue robot that survived the purge on the wing of a ship.
But I still don't know. That doesn't have anything to do with Revenge of the Sith.
Doesn't
being a
it,
movie or
though?
not.
R2's in the movie.
So what?
It's, again, you can't have one without the other. These movies are involved in a tightly woven symbiosis. They can't exist as individual nodules.
Oh, yeah, I get that, but I think Revenge...
R2 is one example of why.
Yeah, but R2's not part... I know what you're saying, but it's not part of the plot. The plot of Revenge of the Sith
R2 won the day.
Oh, my God.
He's the whole movie. If you're going to ask me to dissect the movie, the Revenge of the Sith, main character, R2-D2. What did he do? Smart enough to stay away from the bullshit going on around him. That's a hero, Paul.
Okay, so we're going to have to agree
Now
to
look,
disagree.
Okay. Yeah, this is America. You can be wrong.
Right.
You can't have. Here's a sort of a proof. Okay, Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Okay.
I would argue perhaps the most successful of all of the Marvel quote-unquote movies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I loved it alongside everyone else. I don't think we've had this talk in such a way that our virtual friends have overheard it, which, given the bones at question, is worth mentioning.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think it was the best overall Marvel movie. I think it felt the most spiritually like something that was taking source material and then creating a real movie from it. And even though it speaks of a larger universe,
Right.
In the same way that you could pick up Amazing Spider-Man number 138 and then collect every issue afterward and generally know what's going on, I think the movie had that same punch.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think I like Winter Soldier better. I really like Winter. You don't like Winter Soldier?
No, I like it fine. I'm just being contrary.
Oh,
it was a perfectly good movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's what you're talking about. It's a real movie.
Yeah.
It's not really a comedic,
Sure,
fan winking.
but then think about the movies that come afterward.
Well, that's different.
Any of them that could then say they drew heavily from the content of Winter Soldier, that's where I would suggest those aren't necessarily real movies. They are indeed, as sweet Scorsese said so long ago, rides in an amusement park. Oh, you're shaking your head no.
No, I don't agree with that
All right,
statement.
Paul, let me reel it back a bit here. Backing up. I would have gone beep, 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 but then I remembered, we have a sound guy.
Right. You keep forgetting that.
We back it up a bit. No, I actually agree with what the fan base perceives as opponents of the current wave of genre films. The suggestion that they are not films, recognizing that film does carry a certain strength or judgment with it. They are more like very cool toys, video games, or amusement parks. And prove me wrong, America.
I mean, I think
there are a
You're-
few
it's
of
a-
them that here and there stand. And I will tell you that as a result, this was the point I was going to make before, that as much as I think that it's the most successful Marvel movie in terms of storytelling and spirit and the rest of it, my favorite Marvel movie is The Eternals.
oh God, yeah.
Got to know God from that.
That's
That movie stands tall and on its own. It is the most faithful to the source material. Yeah, I'm
Except
well
for the
aware they
robots.
turned one character into a ship that wasn't a ship. And obviously the deviants work in an entirely different way.
and they're not robots.
But
in
you
the
know
comic.
see how nerdy that sounds when you say those two
Right,
things?
right.
That's because those are very nerdy concerns.
Right.
Once we eliminate the arrested nerd complaint and just look at it as a movie, it's a pretty engaging movie. And the ties that it puts forward of, sleeper characters are more compelling to me than we're going to call ourselves the Avengers. And you're all supposed to clap because someone said Avengers in a movie theater. I hate that aspect of these films. That they insist upon themselves just because you've had a previous commitment to this thing. They know you're going to walk up to that bar already convinced you like the thing, and you're hoping that it just doesn't hurt your feelings enough that you're going to have to be embarrassed.
But I don't
about
think
it.
that's. I don't think that's.
Does that give the audience credit? It doesn't sound like it does.
I think
No,
it-
I'm trying to bring out what I feel is the very true evil of the marketing behind it.
Yeah, I mean that's.
And the presentation.
I'll give you that, but I don't think like Guardians of the Galaxy is not the same movie as Civil War, or Infinity War.
Oh, and it's
isn't
a
the same
great movie. And it's a testament to the movie that when you bring people that aren't invested in comics to watch that, they'd say, hey, that was like a fun Star Wars movie.
Right.
It's a successful movie.
Right.
It's, like I said, there's more than one, and I love it a lot. And James Gunn, if you ever need any life-saving organ, a kidney, a lung, maybe even my heart, depending on the mood of the day, it's yours, buddy. It's yours. You are the king of all men. Peacemaker was a gift that we all share as a people.
That was a great show.
Maron. Such a
Very,
good
very
show.
good show. Highly recommend watching.
We'll definitely talk about it some more at some point, if not tonight. I love everything he's done, and seems like a real solid character. And after meeting his paramour through the Peacemaker show,
Oh yeah.
he needs to stay alive to honor that relationship. That's where I'm at. And if I got to take the hit, I will. God bless them both. If you ever want a third in your bed. Now, that all having been said, I love the Guardians movies, but I love the first one. I liked the next one because, again, it turns into the slop show. We're going to drag in disparate elements that don't really match all that well. These actors, these characters, and this director are likable enough that they've put together a perfectly serviceable movie. But I'm here to tell you before the Lord himself and all of his merry cherubim, it is stupid that Ego was Star-Lord's father.
Oh yeah, that was a fan edition. Oh, I don't want to say fan fiction because he made the movie, but you could tell that James Gunn wanted Star-Lord's father to be a big deal. And in the comics, his dad is just a king of a race that we never really heard of. That doesn't show up again until after the Guardians movie came out.
Starts calling himself by a supervillain name that was just so bankrupt of any creativity it offended me.
Right.
Mr. Knife.
Right, and I have no idea.
Derp.
I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of his alien race because I'm going to mispronounce. It's like it's a P.
Spartax.
Is it the Spartax? I thought it was like
Spartax.
it began with a P. But no, when I heard Ego, and was James Gunn also going around saying, "Oh, Ego's not"?
Martinez. What?
Was James Gunn going around saying that Ego wasn't his dad, and then lied, obviously?
I don't know. The closest I could come to answering that is 2 years before the movie came out. Well, forever before the movie came out. I don't want to throw an actual period of time out. I was, of course, following him on Facebook, like all good-hearted people. And he put up some storyboard art. And he said, no one will figure out what this is. And as Facebook can testify, if you go back and find that posting, you will see one young hero who said, Well, based on the arc of the sides of this weird chasm, I bet you it's Ego the Living Planet. Now, I did not know anything about the movie. This
Right.
was well in advance. And yeah, there you go. The post never came down, but nobody reacted to it. So again, it is evidence of my awesome powers of predilection. But I will suggest that perhaps they should have at that point said, well, hold on here. Now, granted, this is Keith Charles Field. Not everyone is going to possess his keen mind and eye and be able to figure out what we are witnessing here as protoplasm heaving in on itself. But if he figured it out, he may share it with others. Let's change the movie to something more dignified. No, they went full steam ahead on this thing. So, America, I'm sorry you had to deal with a stupid ego for a father, but I did the best I could for all of you.
And have you heard about the plot hole now the Eternals has made?
I've heard a lot of
Ego impregnated the planet, but the planet was already impregnated with a celestial. So how many babies are in the center of the earth?
Well, there's a stillborn baby.
There's two stillborn babies.
There's two stillborn babies.
Yeah. So
And when they emerge, whoo! I hope Thanos' son is involved.
now, where do you think that's going to get resolved? Because they're not making no Eternals too.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, I'm the only person that liked the movie, and I could go on at greater length about it, but I prefer to instead to stand as an inflammatory statement that will make whoever decides they enjoy this show enough to listen to it on multiple occasions say, I like you, Paul, but you should really have me co-host with you, because that guy's a dick. He doesn't like nothing. He gets everything wrong. I think he said Fritz Freeling, or actually, I think I saw at one point I might have misspoke and said Fritz Lang created Woody Woodpecker.
Oh.
And let me tell you something. I want to see that Woody Woodpecker.
There's no way where anyone in our demographic
He's some sort of steampunk monstrosity. That Woody Woodpecker. He's running the metropolis. There's a cruel dwarf repairing mechanisms in his back. What were you saying there?
I completely forgot what I was going to say. I will say that I get what you're saying about the committee or the Marvel committee or if it's Disney proper, but I think that after Spider-Man and now upcoming Doctor Strange,
Sure.
I'm hoping that they're trying to make these movies more movie-like in terms of having a story. It's not gimmicky.
Ultimately, I'm not going to sit here and bitch because they're calling Shuma Gorath by a different name in the upcoming movie.
Which is probably a
'Cause
legal thing. Yeah.
Because who cares? It's whatever the character's spirit is. If it's a movie, in the same way that I don't want it to be so reliant on the other movies in the pool, mechanically or emotionally, but continuity-wise, fine. I also don't want anybody to restrict themselves. But I also don't understand the point of paying $1 billion to play in somebody else's toy box and then not use those specific toys, at least resembling those figures, since they were good enough to spend $1 billion on. Don't be apologetic about them.
Well,
it's why I get furious about the lack of supervillains, because that's such an old and silly idea.
Well, they also merge.
So let's take off Baron Zemo's mask.
It's
not a question of not being polite to the franchise. It's a question of getting the spirit of the thing right. Go on.
They also merge villains a lot, which I don't understand. I don't think it's ever been addressed by any.
Let's buy
journalist.
5,000 characters so we can grind them into 2.
Yeah, and this
doesn't make sense.
This just happened again. I feel like it might be. It basically was happening during the shows. Loki, merged like the Enchantress with the female Loki. These
ultimately,
are not,
this is a good forum for me to just make this statement. Hello.
Oh, prepare yourselves, everyone.
My name is Keith Charles Field. I'm a lovely man, despite what you may have come to believe by now. And when you tell Paul that you think I should go away, I want you to know you're breaking my heart, because I love you more than I can possibly say. Now, in the spirit of that love, know that the Enchantress was originally a Silver Age villainess and an enemy of Thor, femme fatale, very neat character, member of the Masters of Evil, a perennial villain. Okay, always fighting the Avengers. Any hero at some point or another had to deal with the Enchantress.
Also Enchantress 2, because that's her name.
Then in the 2000s, there was a creator who launched a book called The Young Masters. And the premise of this book, it was meant to be a companion book to the successful Young Avengers books, which is its own thing, and I'm sure many of you have heard about that by now. That's likely the direction all the Marvel stuff is building into. And it's okay because it has my little Haley in it, and she's ever so perfect. But anyway, the idea was a new team of teenage villains based on various classic Avengers villains gathered together to oppose the Avengers. And I got very excited at this as a villains guy because there's going to be a new Egghead, and I love Egghead. Egghead is good. Both Eggheads, Marvels and DC's. They should team up.
So there was a new Enchantress.
Egg Foo should be involved as well.
There was a new Enchantress in this group.
So there was a new Enchantress in this group. And she claimed to be like the sister or daughter or niece.
I think it's daughter.
I think she even messed it up a couple of times in
Yeah.
the story because the flip side was she wasn't actually a god.
No, she's a human. Yeah,
she was just a mutant who had some charm powers, and her name was Sylvie Lushton.
Yep.
So this character appeared during that miniseries, which was not well received by anyone, including Keith Field, because I wanted a nice, straightforward story that was going to give me a teenage melter, not some piece of garbage with teenage drama and character development. Paul, it's very important to me that there is a living melter in the Marvel Universe at all times.
I believe there is.
And there are currently 4. So I'm very comfortable with the condition of the Marvel Universe.
Right.
But at the time, it broke my heart. But, Sylvie was the girlfriend of the Melter. Now, I want you to remember that. Sylvie was the girlfriend of the Melter. Now, and he was a stupid Melter. He wanted to be a superhero. He shouldn't want that. He should want to melt things. You do the legacy of Bruno Horgan proud when you melt something cruelly.
I feel like we're going off the rails here.
This is the rail we should have always been on. Look, I love the Scourge more than I love virtually anyone that I'm related to by blood. But it was a mistake when he killed the original Melter. And who killed him? A man who normally would hold my unwitting and undying respect, Mr. Roger Stern.
He died in the bar?
He didn't die in the bar.
No, yeah, he got shot in the face.
You should know where he died, Paul. You know what?
Wasn't in an X-Men book, so that's
wasn't
not...
it? Wasn't it? No, it wasn't. That's okay. That's your second clue. It wasn't in an X-Men book per se, but I'm going to counter with any X-Men fan should know the issue, or at least the series, in which the original Melter was killed by the Scourge of the Underworld.
Shots fired.
That's right. I'm throwing it down right now. And if you fail, you lose 2 Keith points off of your X-Men fandom meter, which at this point, despite what you may believe, I have maintained it 100% for you, Paul. I consider you an unflagging fan of the X franchises. This is going to bring it down to a 98.
He got shot in the face in Alpha Flight?
When did the word shot in the face ever leave my mouth?
I don't know.
Editor! You're supposed to deal with what I'm giving you, not what you think I'm giving you. Again, the Mandela effect.
Was it Alpha Flight?
That's a guess, and it's a poor one. See, I wouldn't hold you accountable to any Alpha Flight story after Byrne left the book.
I mean, there's no
because it was all vomit.
I can't wait to hear
There's not one good Alpha Flight story after Byrne leaves Marvel, and even those stories aren't all that great.
I can't wait to what you think is an X-Men required
How about
reading.
the return of your precious Jean Grey in the pages of the Avengers/Fantastic
There's
Four?
no way that matters.
2-part crossover.
That does not matter at all.
Oh my God!
That is not a thing.
Oh, suddenly, we're so far away from movies, but it's the greatest tragedy of all. Because you're down to an 87 on the Keith-ometer for X-Men fandom.
There's a trade paperback called The Return of Jean Grey that does not have those issues.
You're down to 82%.
I'm not the Marvel's
You're
the one.
almost a C-grade X-Men fan.
The Marvel
Listen.
editorial team came up with that, or Collected Editions team.
Oh my God, I have swallowed so much vomit in the past
Isn't
2
it
minutes.
just like 2 pages?
Listen to me. Number 1, Jean Grey was dead for how many years?
A while.
She comes back in the pages of that 2-parter.
The
John Byrne does some of his loveliest work, and it is here where his pervy nature starts to leak out big time. Because at one point, Jean's resurrection causes everything in Avengers Mansion to start to float around and bob. And there's a panel of Sue smiling in a sexual way as the bed begins to float, going, read. It's delightful.
All right.
It's delightful. He's a filthy man. You know, these little actions that he was barely able to get in books really indicate just how randy that man was when he wrote his book.
So
I love you, John.
So to get
You're
back,
the closest thing I've ever been given to a third stepfather.
And
by this man.
to get back on track too, The third character that was merged with Sylvie in Loki is female
yes.
Loki.
So this is the thing, is that back in that Young Avengers book, we had this Sylvie Lushton character. She's never seen again. A couple of writers later, they're looking for obscure villains to put in their series. They choose her. She winds up in a book called The Illuminati, which never should have been made. It had nothing to do with the Illuminati at Marvel. It was a bad supervillain team-up book. Should have been called The Masters of Evil. That's neither here nor there. And then she showed up during one of those Defenders books that I assume somebody reads. It was the one where they were all girls.
Yeah.
And they fought all girls.
Yeah, but the female Loki is when Loki was inhabiting Sif's body. Yeah.
After all that, the Thor office likes to kill all the gods in Ragnarok events every 2 minutes.
Right.
So it was one of the 14 Ragnaroks that have happened in the past 7
Right.
years. After that whole kerfuffle, the gods came back in different bodies. For those of you keeping score, that's the third time Marvel's done that.
Right.
But you can certainly argue it's the first time that you had Hollywood-level talent handling it. It was specifically Straczynski.
Straczynski, yeah. Who was a fan, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a good run up until, like so many others, the conflict between editorial and writing, took it in 2 different directions. We wound up with Norman Osborn attacking Osgood.
Right.
But when Loki came back, he came back as a woman, and it was solid. It was exciting. It was cool.
Right.
And I don't think he was really allowed to take the story where he wanted to, which certainly wasn't it's Loki's soul possessing Sif.
Well, yeah, there's no way that was a thing.
No. But it was such a popular spike for the character. People really dug the female Loki. It was a shame. So you've taken these 3 concepts and merged them all together. The real Enchantress, this pretender Enchantress, who at the end of one of the storylines was taken by the real Enchantress and thrown into hell.
Right.
And then just the idea of the female Loki. And all of those things merged together into the character we got on the show. Now, is she a delightful character? I say yes. I very much like the Loki show. She was smart and sexy, and if we get something that's fun at the other end of things, then, mazel tov.
Right.
However, again, why spend $1 billion if this is what we're going to do? If we're going to turn 1,000 toys into 2?
No, and I agree. I remember very early on with Iron Man 2. I mean, combining Crimson Dynamo with Whiplash was just the weirdest thing, and they also refused. Based on the trailers, people already pieced it together, and they're like, "Oh no, it's Whiplash. It has nothing to do with Crimson Dynamo, except it is everything."
Now this is where I kind of go counter to my argument that I don't care. I don't want things meshing together into such a tight mesh. Kind of go against it, but I think the truly enlightened will understand. If anything, I've supported it more.
Shoot.
In Iron Man 1, there is a Whiplash character. It's the call sign of an airplane that is chasing Iron Man.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah. Whiplash 1, where Whiplash pulling off. That's good filmmaking. That's good storytelling. That is a fine way to spiritually utilize something that isn't terribly offensive to the core.
Right.
What is Whiplash? Any one of 3 characters whose names and costumes changed 1 billion times, motivation shifted constantly. Go ahead and replace them with an airplane, because airplanes are cool.
Yeah, but then you have the second movie.
Then the second movie comes and we get a Whiplash.
Right.
So that alone is the kind of movie continuity that bothers me, as opposed to nerd continuity.
Okay, that's fair.
So apparently the story was that at that time, as the and let me say, big fan of Mr. Jon Favreau, didn't think I was. Until I learned he's just the kind of guy you want to be the caretaker and custodian
of Star Wars.
of any beloved
anything,
franchise.
yeah.
The guy gets it, man. I tend to see someone who is playing the Hollywood game as being self-serving and mercenary and all the rest of it. And then at some point along the line, you have to drop that weird judgment and be like, and wouldn't you be?
Yeah. If you watch it, I highly recommend Chef. That's his movie.
Oh, I dug Chef.
That was very, very well done.
It was a little on the nose, but it was a good movie.
Yeah, it's very, very
now, John,
good.
if you're listening, my only real problem with Chef is my problem with most of Mr. Favreau's movies that he casts himself in.
Oh God,
you're not nailing Scarlett Johansson and friggin' what's her face from Modern Family.
Modern Family.
Maron, John, you're a lovely man. I'll give you a pass. I'll let you experience the magic and the mystery that is the Carnival of Keith. But the fact is, no, sorry, maybe not.
I think that's artistic license, but I get you.
It's a little much. But no, he showed himself to be more than apt. But Marvel had put together an advisory committee of their shiny top-tier talent. What did they used to call them? The architects?
I think it's the architects, yeah. That sounds. Which
Time has borne out who deserves their Eisner Awards and who doesn't.
Which
but
are,
wasn't it a gross program in your opinion when they named them all the architects?
are we talking about the?
Because the architects were advising Hollywood.
Yeah,
at
and they disband that whole group.
Yeah, it was wise to disband it
Yeah.
because if you're not one of the 14 guys who are part of that drinking club, I'm gonna feel kind of left out of the reindeer games.
I
hope they were nice to Dan Slott.
I
Dan, you're my hero, Dan. I hope they were kind to you.
I will say too that I'm a big I like the entire history of Marvel.
Sure.
And very quickly we skipped all the way to early
Exactly.
2000s stories.
Exactly. I wanted to linger in the Silver Age because, again, why compress decades into one decade?
I mean, you
you see how these unifying theories
I feel like
work
people
so solidly?
I feel like people don't realize that there's going from the first Captain America movie right to Winter Soldier. Even though I love Winter Soldier and I love Civil War, it's insane to me that they did that.
I suppose the counterpoint would be say, well, we did get Baron Zemo in name, if not in character.
Well, yeah, but people do love Zemo. They
Well,
love him.
I'm talking about that movie, Paul.
Right,
Because
right.
they did salvage and repair, quote unquote, as much as they needed to, the Baron Zemo character in that
Right.
Falcon Winter Soldier show, which I kind of wish was just called Baron Zemo, and it was about his rollicking adventures.
We all do.
Even if it was just one episode, because you went just long enough to forget that you wanted to do a good job. You did. Went just long enough to abandon the entire structure of storytelling and make a speech on a street corner.
Now, did you?
And outside of Brewster's Millions, I don't want to see that.
Now, did you see that all the Netflix shows are going to be on Marvel?
I did.
Disney
That
Plus?
was just today, right?
Surprising, yeah, surprising.
It's wacky.
So no more censoring.
Left to me, I just shoot all those masters into the sun. But I think it's cool that they're saying, here's the garbage that we created and bought, that we bought along with this.
Right.
Because make no mistake, and I suppose this has been my day of being somewhat contentious, but I proudly say this. There's nothing good about any of it. Any of it.
Oh, that's not
except for the first season and a half of Daredevil.
Yeah, and I think you won't.
Did I just hear a yeah?
You won't get fights with that.
Did I hear a yeah?
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right,
I
Paul.
agree with that.
You know what? I'm going to give you a pity point. You're up to an 83% fan of the
Sweet.
X-Men on the cathometer.
Sweet.
Good. Good.
I will say, yeah.
Hey, Paul, name all the members of Factor 3. Because at this point, I'm a little annoyed with you, so I want to cause you some problems.
God,
Come on. Factor 3. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who know, there were no good stories to tell about the X-Men in the Silver Age. The creators just didn't know what to do with them. They're fighting El Tigre, and that's why it's the best era of the X-Men. They're fighting Quasimodo. They're fighting the Cobalt Man. And in this mix, in this time of odd stories, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants had exclusively been the foes for the first dozen issues. They tried to bring back that same fun with a new villain terrorist organization, largely made up by the same mutants. But yeah, it had a few unique members, and you as 100%er should easily be able to tell me the core members of Factor 3. Okay, Blob is number 1.
Eunice
is number 2.
Mastermind
is on the team.
And then Mutant Master is the leader.
Is the leader. Good.
Those are the main 3.
Well, are those the main 3? Because you give me 4.
Yeah, those are the main. Mutant Master is the main.
Okay, so you're saying he's the boss, and
then
then these are your main 3.
The 3 underlings are
okay. Okay, grade F. Now, Paul, this I don't want you really failed.
I thought you were saying a grade F like character. I'm like, there's no grade F.
You sir, F. And right now you're thinking, oh, Keith's just being a dick, and yeah, I am. But you are going to be so ashamed of yourself as I continue. And I if you want to cry,
rather
than just say, "Oh yeah, I should have known that." So I will begin. What were you about to say, Paul?
You're about to say Banshee, and I'm gonna go over there.
Okay,
he was a brainwashed hero who is not really a villain.
Okay, so the first character I'm going to choose is Changeling. Changeling was a mutant who could change shape.
Yeah.
Who is best known and remembered for 2 reasons. Number 1. Professor X, in a bizarre and almost Nazi-like move of eugenic horror, erased his memory and changed him to believe that he was Professor X. Now, granted, he volunteered for this. So that when the aliens Nox attacked the Earth, they'd kill him instead of Professor X.
Right.
And, is that an oversimplification? Not really.
That's it.
Number 2, for that character specifically, I'll add the sidebar of he's also the inspiration of your precious Morph from your ghastly X-Men 90s cartoon that I love ever so much, but still use words like ghastly to describe.
Well,
It's like Damnation Alley that way.
That's the animation style.
Exactly. So the fact that you couldn't recognize Morph's attachment to Factor 3. Number 2, Banshee was indeed a member of Factor 3.
He was brainwashed.
And if you want me to nerd it up, go read one of your precious Marvel appendixes, which under group affiliation will always list Factor F and 3.
No, I never.
Okay, whatever, X-Men. Here's the one. This is the only one I needed to say. Boom. Short answer. Ogre. Done. You're going to tell me the Ogre?
Another henchman that nobody cares about?
Oh, really? He is the only true member of Factor 3. The Mutant Master was a squid from space.
It's true.
The Ogre. Beautiful character. He's a fat guy in a purple suit. I've been a fat guy in a purple suit.
We've never seen him ever again.
Oh, really, Paul? Because it seems to me that, like myself, a true fan of the medium, Mr. Kurt Busiek, whose last name I can't pronounce properly, so I just say Busiek. I don't actually. How do you say the gentleman's last name?
It's Kurt Busiek.
Is it Busiek?
It's Busiek.
Is it Busiek or Busiek? Those are two separate
no,
words.
It's Kurt Busiek. Yeah,
it's Busiek.
Yeah, Busiek.
All right,
sorry,
Paul.
sorry.
That's the third way you've pronounced it.
Right.
So I think I'm right to start with a qualifier like, here's what I call him. From this point forward, I will call him only Curdy B. And I will make up cute songs about him like, let's see. My cute song pool has now been activated. Curdy B, 1, 2, 3. You're as tall as a little tree. See?
Okay, then. This is the person I'm getting yelled at about obscure X-Men continuity.
He returned the Ogre to prominence in his Thunderbolts series.
And then killed him?
When we learned that the Thunderbolts headquarters was the previous headquarters of Factor 3.
Yeah.
So I would have given you partial credit if you even mentioned the Thunderbolts living in their house.
You didn't let me finish, to be fair.
And I'll ask the audience, because I know they're hanging on this thing with as much rapt emotional attention as myself. Did he say Vanisher when he named the villains?
No, I did not.
Oh, good work, Paul. I let you throw yourself on that blade yourself. I felt it would have had a little more dramatic effect if they both stood up and said, no, and I'm really sick by the fact that he has it. Because Vanisher was what set it off. Vanisher was never a member of the Brotherhood. He was a member of Factor 3. At any rate, hold on. Gordon has used his cell phone to access bizarre information.
Right, but
he is showing to Paul, so he's either trying to shame Paul past all imagining or assist him as some black market.
To be fair, they said Banshee
putting bullets in a sad
They're
gun.
saying Banshee and Ogre are agents, not members, which are two different
so
things.
Agents of Hydra are not members of Hydra.
No, they're just
they're
like freelancers.
What are they? Lutherans? What are they, Paul?
They're usually just used as freelance henchmen type of thing. So they're not members.
They belong to the Unified Order of Hench.
I mean,
but it seems to me when Curdy B returned the character, he referred to his time with Factor 3, his membership with Factor 3.
I mean, literally,
agents is an affiliation.
I'm looking at
the
photo of the just so you know,
U.S. agent has no affiliation with the United States, ladies and gentlemen.
When they show the members of Factor 3,
it stands for underwear stings.
The only 4 members are Mutant Master, Eunice, Blob, and Mastermind. So they're the main members.
Who wrote that? Let's open up the editorial page because I'm willing to bet it's going to be a user by the name of XFan 100% P, and that P stood for Paul because he's putting erroneous information on as a half-baked Wikipedia contributor.
It's an art. It's from the. I'm assuming it's the annual. I don't know what.
Wait a minute. Is he looking at Comics Vine?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I take back every word I said. I don't need to say a thing. Comics Vine is trash. Pass it on. I'm kidding. I use Comics Vine all the time.
Comics Vine is good for the for cataloging what issues people are in.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I used it for recently. I went with my special friend to a comic book shop recently, and on a whim picked up the first 2 little digest volumes of Spider-Gwen, The Adventures of Gwen Stacy, because I love that little character, and I'd read the book, but of course, being a problemed individual, I gave away the book some time ago and missed it. So like, that's cool. I'll pick this up and try to see, and I haven't read it for the past couple of, because it's one of these Marvel books that comes out in arcs of like a dozen issues and then goes away. So I hadn't read her last 2 series. So I sat down and tried to puzzle out, because they've launched so many of these series, what order they all came in and what volume was what,
difficult.
because I was buying trades. Of course, I don't buy monthlies anymore or papers. And Comics Vine was the Rosetta Stone that I was able to utilize to collect my little waifu in all of her appearances.
Comics Vine is very good. The only thing I don't like, if for those who don't know, they're a website that lists every appearance of every character.
Yeah,
in
but
comics.
apparently they really screwed things up in the matter of Factor 3.
Well,
Comics Vine, you need to fix that.
They also-
You're shaming yourself. An agent is a member of an organization.
So besides their screw up here,
Yes.
they include international
Yes, they do.
comics, which is very confusing because Great Britain, and it looks like anything in the UK looks like American comics, except for like there'll be a pound sign or something.
Sure.
So you don't really know what's a real book and what
It
isn't.
wasn't always the case, though, because I'm sure you remember, like, in
Well,
the 70s,
older.
80s, when it would be like, Daredevils.
Yeah,
and
but
it would be 3 reprints and then some black and white nobody liked.
Right, but from the 90s up, it's just, here's a cover of Salvador LaRocca's X-Men, and you're like, what X-Men series is this?
Have I ever shown you my Russian copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 300?
I don't think you're allowed to own that anymore.
Well,
So-
I certainly don't, America. It's a delight. It really is. I was hoping that the products inside would be uniquely Russian, so it would be a table with a potato sitting in the middle of it.
Were they not? Or were they just...
With just the single Russian word now.
Right,
over
right.
it.
What was that episode of Simpsons with like, all we got are these Russian cartoons, and they're like these horribly...
Worker and Parasite.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God.
It was...
Oh.
It was when I
Ren
was
and-
going to say Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, Itchy and
That,
Scratchy.
that would have been the ultimate multiversal Simpsons.
no, but-
that Ren and Stimpy took the
Wait,
place of
wait,
Itchy
wait.
and Scratchy.
You know there's
I'm
Ren-
working it into my erotic fan fiction.
You know there's a Ren and Stimpy clip in Simpsons, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, there
it
is
was
a
when,
clip.
Bart lied to get a big brother.
Right, right.
And then
How
there
that-
were actually there are two major references to it. It was that they
How that
watched an
happened,
episode.
I have no idea.
Well, John Kay had a good relationship with The Simpsons.
Yeah, but Nickelodeon let him do that.
Yeah. I don't know.
It was-
his exposure for the Nickelodeon show backward, I suppose.
I mean, it was
He had
great.
a good relationship with them up until recently. He even did a bunch of those alternate openings for The Simpsons.
Well, everybody was doing
You
those
know,
openings.
you meet a lot of people on Epstein Island, don't you guys?
Oof.
That would be kind of disruptive
Alleged-
to my career if I had any interest of going to Hollywood.
Allegedly, because that is also a legal thing. Allegedly.
Oh, what? Did I not say allegedly?
No.
Oh, I think I did.
Yeah.
I think it's in.
Oh, now you said it. It
Alle-
doesn't matter. as
All
long as
I
you say
said.
it.
Now, let's think about what I said. Did I say that any of the producers, creatives, or writing staff of The Simpsons were in any way affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein? I don't think I did. I said, guys, you run into a lot of people, interesting people on Epstein Island. Did I bring up the fact that John Kay is a known, perhaps, naughty man in the subject of naughtiness?
Alleged.
Alleged? Well, there's this place called court, and once things are decided there, they're not alleged anymore.
Oh,
but that's not the kind of conversation we're having here. I'm not going to throw out a random word like 13 or years or even old. I'm not going to talk about...
Was he convicted?
He never went to jail. But, you know, they did take down the Ren and Stimpy portraits at Nickelodeon. But I'm not saying any of that has to do with John Kay. Because the fact is, I love John Kay. He draws the best box art for Quisp cereal you'll ever see.
Who's the other?
Because that was not canceled.
Who's
He
the-
gets to draw his cereal illustrations on the back.
Who's
of
the
Quisp
other?
cereal.
Who's the other animator that isn't an alleged?
No, I didn't suggest John Kay.
Who's the other guy? Is it? Am I thinking of the right person? Bob Camp? Is that a guy?
Bob Camp was another animator. He was,
For Ren
as
and
far as
Stimpy.
I'm concerned, he was
For Ren and
he
Stimpy.
was
Yeah,
the fist
that's
of
what-
Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I knew that.
What
Bob
was
Camp.
that weird comic he did? It was a spoof of like Kirby, Big Blown Baby. It was for,
Oh, no
for Dark
idea.
Horse.
No idea.
It crossed over with Baby Hellboy,
Oh, it had
whatever
the
he was
artwork
called.
like a Ren and Stimpy, like the.
and it was full of characters
Yeah.
who were all like takeoffs of Odin and Galactus, like sitting on toilets. and
Yeah,
stuff. It was
yeah.
very funny. I liked it very much. I like Bob Camp. Thumbs up. I like Ren and Stimpy very much too. Thumbs up for that. And I'm a big John Kay fan of most of his body of work. Most. I won't make a cute pun or clever
All right,
exchange
all right.
there. I think we've danced around it enough. But I would like to point out again, I've never suggested that John Kay and anyone affiliated with the Simpsons program in any way had anything to do with a certain real-world horrifying supervillain's island of sexual
Nope.
carnage and terror.
Moving right along.
Moving right along, you pointed out I've made a recent change to the decor here in our studio. I have decorated one of the overhanging walls with the boxes and containers of a very specific brand of DVD and Blu-ray motion picture, specifically the
70s independent, low budget 70s independent films.
Some would suggest a mix of porn and exploitation films, and I'd say, well, that's your truth. But I shall say art. But the common thread that hangs here is, of course, they are all films that have been restored and are currently distributed by Vinegar Syndrome. The film company of love sent to save us all from ourselves.
Free plug
for them. I bend the knee at that place at least twice a month, so that I can see the pornography on the lowest shelves being offered in their base here in Connecticut. I speak, of course, of the Archive in lovely Bridgeport, Connecticut, where it is the home base of this internationally known distributor of the finest in salvaged art. And now we have that hanging on the wall. At any rate, I directed our attention here for a reason.
Don't know what that could possibly be.
What was I talking about? Oh, yes. One of these films is a movie that just came out recently. The whole world of as we like to call ourselves, mutants, who enjoy this sort of thing, has been buzzing about this movie, and I'm sorry to say I didn't particularly care for it. It was called The Scary of 69.
No idea.
It's an independent horror film. I know the 69, all right, now. But yeah, it is kind of dirty. However, it's a very independent, intentional exploitation film. Modern. It was just made this year. It's about these girls who wind up moving into an apartment that was formerly that of Jeffrey Epstein. And Epstein's ghost begins to influence and possess the girls and turn them perverted.
It's not really how ghosts work.
It's an R-rated film. There is some erotic charge, but it's not, it doesn't go too far. Someone may put their hand against the address panel of Epstein's apartment, and while holding the number, masturbate. So you can certainly decide if that's triggering or negative for you. But there's actual dialogue of someone playing Epstein possessing a new body and talking to his aide-de-camp there. What was her name? Mrs. Locke?
No idea.
No, that was Arcade.
I was just say, wait, that sounds familiar.
She had a good James Bond villain, Major Domo.
It's like Maxwell something.
I forget. It was
Ghislaine. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. I was going to go with Madame Fang. I thought that was more to the point. But
right, yeah.
And she's not dead though. Right?
No, she's not dead yet.
Okay, there was some yeah.
Not yet.
Watch out when they hand you the mop, there, honey. That's your indicator of where things are headed. Someone is possessed by one of the victims who's into it. Very disturbing stuff.
Is one of the victims dead?
I assume. I mean, that magical party was going on for a very long time. I think you might be
right.
I mean, long enough that there could exist a political climate in which President Bill Clinton and President Donald Trump are each sitting at a table with Mr. Epstein on his island. That's not alleged. It's just a picture. I'm certainly not suggesting anything untoward about either of those morally upright individuals.
So you're saying this movie sucks?
It certainly doesn't make the best statement about the futility of a two-party system that I've ever seen put to film. But yeah, no, it didn't suck. It kind of fell short of the mark for me. And because, believe it or not, our topic was generally movies, I felt I needed to kind of come back to film because we were talking about friends of that ghost. I'm not suggesting that in the sequel, various members of the Simpsons staff might get their own little host bodies to populate. But yeah, that really bothered me. That whole reveal.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair, I guess. In a weird tangent. Three tangents ago.
Listen. Now, obviously, we were talking about the Marvel movies very quickly. We went in a lot of directions. That's the point of this program, because that way we canvas more of the ocean to pull back the delicious krill and plankton with wider net.
Well, a lot of people are talking about. I was saying a lot of people were talking about Thunderbolts now because Marvel hasn't announced anything in the next year or something.
Well, my preamble there was to say that I realized that I obviously, given the wandering nature of the conversation, maybe we didn't focus or make a true point about the movies, or maybe even sound a little hypocritical, or at least I know I have. that's the burden of being such a passionate individual. The fact is that reliance on, I don't want anybody to mistake the idea that I dislike the idea of the intertwined continuity, because that's why the movies work. That's why I love them. That's why the Warner Brothers stuff will never work until it starts building a singular continuity.
Yeah, I would agree.
And if someone is going to be the overall high muckety muck of that continuity,
It's Paul Santos.
I am going to suggest that in this case, a man who did not, from memory, easily start a list of the membership of Factor 3 with Ogre should not be handed the reins of creative control. Instead, look on the other side of that table. You look to the man who is now an adult small, ladies and gentlemen. Big flex there. Melting away.
I mean,
I've
been an adult small like since I turned 18.
Yes, but
so.
you've lived a healthy life. I've made real mistakes, Paul.
This is
The happiest memory I have of my mother is watching Damnation Alley. No. We watched America's sweetheart Paul Winfield die in a roach motel. Literally. Now, it's not the continuity I object to. The continuity is what I demand. It's what makes the Marvel movies what they make. It's that need to divorce yourself from the source material, not because you are better, quote unquote, than it or more mature than it. It's that you don't give your audience enough credit to think that, because the born-in audience obviously is the genre fan.
Right.
That you think they are so removed from just the normal human enjoyment of storylines, ideas, and anything that you have to take what they'll take a bullet for and make it palatable for, quote, normal people. Sorry, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You did this so that you would have seats immediately filled on name recognition. So don't tell me Taskmaster's in your movie and give me a movie without Taskmaster in it.
That's my other problem.
Don't call a character Elias Starr in the Ant-Man movie without telling us that he is Egghead.
Right.
Don't call a character the Ghost, who is a hot friggin' Wonder Woman who could have had a major role in any film, make no mistake there. But that character, sexy chick of Walking Through Walls, has no resemblance to the source material in any way.
Right.
For those of you who might be confused, it is dispensed with in a single sentence that the magnificent and beloved Marvel villain Egghead was the father of that girl Ghost in the movie. He's never referred to as Egghead, and he is killed in a 2-second clip.
Yeah, it's weird to me because it's like you said,
you paid $1 billion for Egghead and the Ghost. Why not let them both fly?
And a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's the comic book nerds or the continuity guys." Mainstream movie critics, one of their biggest complaints with the Marvel movies are weak villains, and there's weak villains because you're, I don't know, bastardizing. Basically,
it's because they're ashamed of the source
right,
material.
Right.
They think to make it palatable by the U.S., they have to make it look not like a comic. Meanwhile, talk to anybody who isn't a comic book fan but is a fan of the movies, excited about the history and the advance of those characters. They're geeking out more over those simple stories than I ever did over any story. They love this stuff.
Right.
People are ravenous for it. Why do people watch soap operas? Or at least did once upon a time. It was, well, because they're naughty. And all of that, but as well, the thing that I know engendered me to them, because that's right, I watched soap operas. Bold and the Beautiful, and Young and the Restless. And as the world turns on occasion, they were my true north for many, many moons. You know, the fact that it was surprising to anyone that I was homosexual is perhaps the largest surprise of all. But anyway, no, that continuity appeals to people. Why do people watch? Well, actually, these days they watch the WWF because it's better than adult cinema. I should be putting Alexa Bliss on my wall beside my Vinegar Syndrome movies. But it is, again, it's the soap opera and drama. It's the continuity.
It's bizarre, too, because like you said, the original Ghost has nothing to do. It's not a normal, it's not just a sex change or a race swap.
I am so proud of you that is the element you seized on, because you understand as well what a sin against nature it was.
So was Taskmaster. It wasn't just a gender swap. It was a completely... That character,
and here's the problem with
anything.
It's not that it's a girl, because frankly, if you would put a girl in the Taskmaster costume playing the Taskmaster character,
be hot.
The Taskmaster's real name is Tony Masters. Tony with an I.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me that wouldn't be the hottest damn thing that ever was? It's not the gender swap. Make the Ghost a girl. but you have to stay true to the spirit of the character.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there to identify them as in any way the thing
And they
you paid $1 billion for.
And again, what's crazy is they keep getting called out on it by fans, by
No, you're
the
all being
critics.
incels. You're all just incels. You want to see the thing that you love on a screen. Well, yeah, that's why we're excited. That's why we're at your sneak preview. That's why we bought your merchandise. And you can look down your nose at us, which is largely an attitude that is informed by the modern journalist pool, made up of uncommitted slackers who are too good to work at McDonald's, who know that they can immediately engender viral attention if they call out the fan base that rejects them for not knowing anything about what they're reporting on. So it's an easy thing to bring up a term like incel, okay? What is an incel? Oh, it's a guy who never grows up, so he cares about all this too much. Yeah, so he's going to call you out on writing your top 10 article about the Nintendo games we all remember loving when you've never even looked at a television, much less a Nintendo. It's you commenting on why Thanos is the LGBTQ character that we need right now, when that has nothing to do with any reality and any focus
Was that
of reality.
a real article?
I speak only truths.
Okay.
Unlike yourself, who believe that an agent is not an affiliate of an organization.
No, he's an agent.
It's that.
Okay, I'm going to chime in with some semantics here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
An agent can also be an independent contractor.
Can be.
Thank
Can
you.
be.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you, Rich.
but let's say you worked for an evil employer, Rich, and they commanded you to kill Jack Ruby. When you are invariably caught, because I'm sorry, you're not the assassin that I could be. When you get on this, what is your defense going to be? You're just following orders. The real culprit here is the master organization.
Yeah, but that's all. It's like
Vice versa. No, sorry, you're a willing member of Hydra. Once you're an agent, you're in for a penny.
It depends if you get a W-2 or a W-9.
Much less a 1099. Ladies and gentlemen, our man Rich. He makes the sounds American.
Every episode is a new adventure. Keith hates science fiction. Paul outs a Soviet spy. How Damnation Alley helped forge cinema as we know it. Keith reveals his favorite Marvel movie and loves you all. And no one suggested anything about anyone on Epstein Island. Infinite Geek Talk is brought to you by Infinite Heroes Comics, Cards, and Collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut, and Gorilla Valley Games. Infinite Geek Talk is a Rat's Nest production, recorded and engineered by Rich Johnson in the Rat's Nest Studio.